Hey, folks, welcome to the J&J Sports Express show. I'm your co-host, Jeff Cadillac, and this is my co-host for the evening, JB Ellis. How are you tonight, JB?
Doing good. Excited. I missed last week. Unfortunately, things come up, but, you know, we're here. We're ready to do this. I got the Godfather over here all suited up, ready to go. Going to make this the best football pregame show in the history of football pregame shows.
Yeah, and every week we look at 5 integral games of the NFL schedule. We are, looking to go live every week and bang them out, and I think we have a good time doing it as well. So let's get to the first game. Thursday night. This is a really good matchup. I like this game. This is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are home and they are laying 4 points at the Chargers. How do you like this game, JB?
So I'm going to break it down in two ways. So, I think the Chiefs are going to win because they're at home. It's going to be a close game. And because we're talking point spread, we're not talking about who's going to win for people that aren't into gambling or don't understand it as well. Because I was there years ago, I didn't understand -4 what the difference is. That's over a key number. When you get to anything above 2.5, you're talking about key numbers, and that could be a whole 3-hour show. But because it's 4, I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think their defense this year has come up. They've done a lot better. They got Khalil back if he stays healthy. With the additions that they've made, they're defensively sound. Their offense, we saw what they were starting to do last year. They got to make sure that they stay healthy. They got to get Eckler the ball a little bit more than they did last week. Herbert does what he does best. I think he's, calm, cool, and collective in the pocket. Great on third down, great when he's being rushed.
Well, I'll tell you, let me jump in a little bit. I like Justin Herbert. He had a very good game last week against the Raiders, threw for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He looked very cool. He looked like it was already the middle of the season. And Khalil Mack, as you mentioned before, there was a question or not whether he was going to bring it. He's been kind of lackadaisical the last couple of seasons. He had 3 sacks last week against Vegas. And also, Joey Bosa on the other side, he had 1.5 sacks. So you're talking about, a 2 tandem guys that, one complements the other. I got to go with you on this game also. I like the Chargers. The Chargers, here's a stat for you that folks probably don't even know. The Chargers are 16-4-2 against the spread as a road dog in the division of the AFC West. Okay? That's pretty impressive. So they play almost better on the road than they do at home. And, even though Mahomes, you can't take him out of the equation here. He had 5 touchdowns. Arizona last week, though, they're depleted. They got no Chandler Jones. They got no J.J. Watt. So there was no pressure on him. He basically sat back there and just picked Arizona apart. There was no sacks of him. Also, one other note is Keenan Allen for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's doubtful for this game with a hamstring, which is important because that's one of Herbert's favorite targets. So, but he can find a lot. He knows how to spread the offense around. If he gets enough protection against Kansas City, which I think he will, I like the Chargers in this game. I agree with you. I take the Chargers +4.
Yeah, the Chargers won 2 out of the last 3 against them. Last time they played in Kansas City, they won 30-24. I think this is a good young team. I don't think they're going to win the game outright. If you don't gambling, I would have bet them outright to win as a dog. But I think with the 4 points, that key number that I talked about earlier, I would definitely go with the Chargers and feel comfortable. It's going to be a great game to watch. It's going to be high scoring. I really want to. I'm glad we got a chance in prime time to see this new Charger defense to see where they're going to go.
Well, I think people watching this show, they definitely know what the point spread is. If they're watching this show, they're looking for some inside information. They know exactly where to find it right here at the J&J Sports Express. Moving right along to the second game, we got Sunday at 1:00, Miami at Baltimore. Baltimore's at home. They're laying 3.5 points. How do you like this game there, JB?
This is an interesting game. The Ravens running situation is very, very interesting. Dobbins, is he going to play? What type of work is he going to get? who's going to be running the ball for them? You don't want Lamar to be the guy that's going to run the ball. He's too valuable. He's going to run sometimes. We know that, but we want to keep him in the pocket as much as we can and let him roll out. And when he has to run, let him go. But we don't want design runs for him because if he gets hurt, their season's done. So this is why I'm leaning towards the Dolphins. The Dolphins have a very good defense. Tua, is kind of like the Miami version of Jimmy G right now. He can manage a game. They have a decent running game. They have some nice receivers in Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think 3.5's a bit much.
I got to agree with you on this game again. I like Miami. I like what they did against New England last week. They created turnovers. They took advantage of situations. They were up in that game 17-0 versus New England. Little known stat, the last 11 games between Baltimore and the Dolphins, Baltimore's 8-3 straight up and 8-3 against the spread against the Dolphins. Dolphins and Ravens, they have a little rivalry going that a lot of people don't know of. This is not some game that the guys don't know each other. And, they've played each other once a year for the last few years, maybe missing 1 year here, 1 year there. But these are some battles, and they get heated. And I've watched some of these games, and they get really tough in the trenches. You got to look at Lamar Jackson, as you said last week. He played so-so against the Jets. You take away that 55-yard touchdown he had, where I forget who it was too. The guy was all the way in the back. He only had about 170 yards passing. I mean, that's not against the Jets. He should have had like 300-400. And Baltimore almost played like they didn't want to be there, because that game was 10-3 for a while. Then it got 17-3, and it seemed like it was very slow, a very slow moving game. Like Baltimore said, yeah, we know we're going to beat the Jets. We're just going to put it on when we need to. Miami took care of business last week against New England. They didn't waste any time. They wanted to come out storming. And, a lot of people don't realize, even if Tua doesn't have a good game or if he gets hurt, you still got Teddy Bridgewater behind him, which he is very capable of leading a team to the playoffs if something were to happen. So, he played on a few teams. He was great when Drew Brees was out. He took in the beginning of his career, he took Minnesota to the playoffs. This guy is not some slouch. So he's ready, willing, and able to step in. But I like the weapons on Miami. And also Baltimore has already a lot of guys that are injured in the secondary. If Tua just doesn't force the ball and he plays if he plays he takes what the defense gives him and is able to look it over and spread the offense out. See, this is what, a lot of quarterbacks problem is. They get comfortable with one or two receivers and they forget about the rest. And you cannot do that, because then defenses just tee up on that. They pick up, they watch film. If they see that the offense is being spread, like Miami needs to keep it, they'll keep the defense guessing. And that's the key to this game right here. And
well,
plus,
one thing I do want to say that I did like that I saw from Baltimore last week, Devin Duvernay had the 2 touchdown catches. He's showing the speed that they had last year when they lost Hollywood Brown, which is good. That's important to them for that offense. They have a lot of weapons on offense. When they get their running game back, when Dobbins comes back and he's healthy, I think that offense will be a lot different. I mean, it's hard to get up to play the Jets. I can understand why they weren't excited. They didn't come out like a house of fire. It's not really a good excuse, but I can understand it. But again, I think if the Dolphins just do what they need to do, their defense is good enough to keep them in the game. And if Tua just takes what they give him, he has enough weapons on that offense that 3.5 points is a lot of points.
Well, anything more than a field goal says a lot in a game. 4 points, 3 points, 7.5, 8 points. It all depends, because now you're thinking more than a field goal, more than a touchdown. And even though the Ravens are 3.5 point favorite, I think Miami's got a good shot at possibly winning this game outright. They have to play ball control. They have to create turnovers, and they have to take advantage of them. They cannot make stupid mistakes where Baltimore will just score at will. And they can run up the score. I mean, there are some games, they score 40, 50 points, and it's almost like a machine. And Miami cannot let this game get away from them.
And another thing with Miami as well, if they want to be taken serious and, pretend like they have a shot to win the division, they're not going to. Buffalo is by far a superior team. But if you want to be taken serious that you can take this division, you have to come out of week 2 and you have to play your A game against the Ravens and be in it till the end and have a shot to win. If you can't do that, you can't come out and say, oh, we're going to be as good as Buffalo. We have a shot to win the NFC East, of the AFC East. By far, Buffalo is a phenomenal team. We saw what they did on the road in LA last week.
Well, I'll tell you something. The Ravens, we got to see which team shows up. Because last year they had a very off season. They didn't play well. Down the stretch, they lost 6 games in a row. They didn't make the playoffs. So it's sort of like the Ravens have to show up as well. They can't be lackadaisical about things. They got to move forward. Lamar Jackson bet on himself this year by not taking a contract in the offseason. So he's waiting till after this season to sign a new deal. And, he's all in. So we'll see what happens on Sunday.
Yeah, let's switch over to the Cards-Raiders.
Okay. Yeah, this game is at 4:00. Raiders are at home. They're laying 5.5 points. What do you think, JB?
So last week, I have to start with this question. The Chiefs went into Arizona and just laid the wood to the Cards. I mean, are the Cardinals that bad? Are the Chiefs that good? I mean, is there anything when you look at that game and say, okay, this is the way these teams are right now? Well, I think that's the first question.
I think Arizona, first of all, they have no J.J. Watt, no Chandler Jones. Those are 2 big, pieces. I mean, J.J. Watt isn't what he used to be. Let's put it that way. But Chandler Jones is still in the prime of his career, and he's not there. I don't know why they let him go. There was no pressure on the quarterback by Arizona last week, as I said in the previous game with Kansas City, that no sacks of Mahomes. He just sat there and picked everybody apart. I think Arizona is very, dependable upon certain guys, and if they're not there, nobody steps up. And you also got DeAndre Hopkins. He's out. Kyler Murray, loved him. Who's he throwing to now? It's anybody's guess. He's got to be able to spread that offense, out, and he's not doing it right now. And that's the problem with Arizona as well. He got too comfortable with DeAndre Hopkins. He doesn't know who to give it to. James Conner is picking up some of the slack, but he's a running back, and you can't depend on a running back to be your, runner, catcher, everything. I mean, there's so many Christian McCaffreys, running around the league, but this game, I got to tell you, Derek Carr also needs to step it up because he played awful in against the Chargers last week, even though they were able to come back and they made it a close game. I mean, he had 3 turnovers of his own, and he's got to step it up because he's got some good weapons around him. He's got Devontae Adams. I mean, I like the Raiders in this game, but they got to show me something. They got to really show me something. You got to be able to beat the bad teams and play competitive against the good teams. And last week, you can't start out like you did and then, try to come back. This week, you got to beat the bad teams. The Cards right now are a very bad team.
So, I mean, you look at both of these teams, and they both started out horrible last week. The Raiders, beginning of the game was not good. The Cardinals, the whole game was not good. The Raiders are projected, I would say, to have a better season than the Cardinals. I think that they are offensively at this point with the Hopkins thing happening and the injuries to the Arizona defense. I got to say that the Raiders have an overall better team. And after what happened last week, though, this is where the NFL is weird. The Cardinals are going to come out and want to play, and they're going to have some fire in them. But so are the Raiders, because the Raiders lost. And they lost.
The Raiders are on a bounce back.
Yeah, and they lost to a division rival.
And they're a better team. Better team on paper.
I'm going to take the Raiders minus the 5.5. But I think that this is going to be an interesting game to see. That the only chance I think that the Cards would have, got to pound the ball with Connor, keep the ball as much as you can on offense, run up the game clock, run up the time of possession to about 35, 40 minutes, hold the ball, keep it out of Derek Carr's hand. Don't let him have a chance to throw to Adams. Don't let him have a chance to throw to Waller, and just keep running the ball. Let Murray throw little, passes to Brown and, whoever, but keep the ball as much as possible. And that's their shot to win this game.
I agree with you. The Cards have to play almost near perfect game to even win this game. The Raiders just have to play their game and be smart. And Derek Carr has to spread that offense out. The same thing, quarterbacks, like I said, get comfortable. He's got Devontae Adams. Use your Darrell Walker, tight end. Use your guys. Josh Jacobs needs to have a good game. They should be able to plow through the Cards. I see this is a possibility of another blowout for the Cards 2 weeks in a row because they're just really bad. They're going in the wrong direction. The Raiders need to because they're in a tough division. Any team right now can win that division, and they're not 4 teams in that division are not going to the playoffs. So Derek Carr needs to get on the page. He needs to get on the same page with the rest of the team, and he really needs to have a good game and a bounce back game at that. Because
I'm confident right now to say the Raiders would buy over a touchdown. I think that the Raiders, the fact that they showed a comeback last week against a really good Los Angeles Chargers team, says a lot. Where the Cards played a really good team at Kansas City and did absolutely nothing. They just folded. I don't see them doing anything.
That score was 37-7 at one time. Believe me, the garbage time touchdowns that the Cardinals got is good for stats, but it don't mean anything in the win column. So
yeah, I just don't see I think the Raiders win by over a touchdown.
At least.
I would be very confident in that. Let's head over to Bears Packers. This is an interesting one. We're talking week 2. The Bears are ahead of the Packers in the division. Sunday night game, prime time. The last time these guys played in prime time, I happened to be there. For 3 quarters, it was a great game for about 2.5 quarters, and then that was it. The Packers took over. Matt Nagy was the coach. They changed what they were doing on offense, and they just couldn't do anything anymore. This Bears team, I kind of like the new coach.
Well, I got to tell you, the Bears last week beat a bad San Francisco team. Trey Lance, was in the monsoon. Justin Fields, I'm not still sold on. Without that 55 or 51-yard pass to Dante Pettis, he has 70 yards passing for that game. He needs to play better. He needs to be able to see the field, not think run right away. They were down 10-3. They ended up winning 19-10 against San Francisco. San Francisco, look, Trey Lance is not Jimmy Garoppolo. So it's gonna take some time for San Francisco really to, get a feel. But I liked the Bears last week, and I couldn't believe they were such a home dog like they were. But in this game, let me tell you something. Aaron Rodgers is on a bounce back. And when he's on a bounce back, he don't lose 2 in a row too often. And they were slaughtered by Minnesota last week. Yes, he had a couple injuries to the offensive line. Yes, he's working with some new wide receivers. I think he'll get it in sync. I think, things are going to happen. And especially in home openers, Aaron Rodgers is 12-2 against the spread. Last 15 games, Green Bay home versus Chicago, the Bears. Green Bay is 12-3 straight up and 10-5 against the spread. And the last 27 games between the two teams, Green Bay is 22 games. Green Bay versus Chicago, Green Bay is 17-5 against the spread. So, Bears, listen, they look good against San Francisco. San Francisco is who they are, but the Packers are looking to, possibly go further. And the bounce back for Aaron Rodgers in prime time, I like the Packers in this game.
See, if we were talking straight up wins, yeah, I'm with you. The Packers are going to win this game. I feel bad for Bears fans. It's just not happening just yet. You see the Packers get destroyed last week. You have a tough win against San Francisco. You make a great comeback. And, you think maybe you have a shot this week. You're all pumped and excited. It's not happening. You're not going to win the game, but you're not going to lose against the point spread. If you're a Bears fan, feel comfortable. 10 points is a lot of points. I don't think that Green Bay has the same team that they had previously. I don't see the offensive line being good enough. I don't see the new receivers picking up the slack. And 10 points against the Bears team that's not making the same mistakes that they made the year before. They're coached better. You can see it. It was evident in the way that they played and came back last week. The use of the running backs. Yes, Justin Fields does have to do more. He didn't have a lot of yards passing, but I'm gonna give that one a wash because it was a monsoon. The field was horrible. Not an easy game to go out there and pass. Hopefully Sunday the weather is a little bit better. We'll see what he can do up in Lambeau. I'm confident that he'll do a lot better this week as opposed to last week. I'll use the weather as his excuse for that one. But I think that, the Bears cover. I don't think they win. Would it shock me if they lose by a touchdown? But 10 points, that's a lot of points. And I don't see this year's Green Bay team doing that. Last year was a different year. I just don't think they have it this year.
Okay. All right. So you like the Bears plus the points, and I like the Packers laying the points. So we go to Monday night. Monday night has two games this week, but we're looking at one of the games. Tennessee is at Buffalo, and Buffalo is the favorite by 10 points. Who do you like, JB?
So let's start with what the teams did last week. Buffalo flew across the country Thursday night, so they have the long rest, and just laid a hammer down on the Super Bowl champions and won that game easily. Tennessee played the team that's got the worst record over the last 5 years and, had a comfortable 13-0 lead and lost the game. So the question is, using the bounce back theory with the 10 points, you would think Tennessee would be a great bet here. I think Buffalo's too good. I can't see Tennessee being in the same building as Buffalo. But that's just my first take on it. I think that they got to figure out what happened with the run game last week. Got to get the ball to Derrick Henry more. Got to get him more involved. He's got to get yards. He's the key to that team offensively. If he's not keeping the ball, you don't have ball control. Same thing we said about Dolphins and the Cards and Raiders with Connor. Tennessee's got to have Henry, grind up those yards, run the clock, because you don't want Buffalo's offense on the field. And Buffalo's defense played a lot better than they did last year. They showed up, holding the Rams in check throughout the whole game. They made a big improvement from last year. So, I don't see how Tennessee even stays in this game.
Well, I'll tell you something. This is a must-win game for Tennessee. Okay, after last week's debacle of being up 13-0 and then losing the game 21-20 to the Giants, Mike Vrabel is probably breaking everything in that locker room to get the message across. They need to play better ball all across the board. Tannehill needs to spread that ball apart, spread the ball around, and the defense needs to make stops because they weren't making any stops out there, and they're letting the Giants run all over the field. You're going to see some changes this week. Otherwise, Tennessee's season is already down the tubes because they cannot go 0-2 already. That's too big of a deficit in the AFC South because Indianapolis is the team that everybody's figuring is going to win it outright. And they tied against Houston last week. But I like, believe it or not, I like Tennessee plus the points in this game because after a big blowout as Buffalo had last week, now for the first half, it was 10-10. It's the second half that Buffalo made some changes and adjustments, and they changed their game, and it looked like the Rams didn't, and they came out strong, and they scored 21 points. Rams didn't score any. Stafford's elbow was a question. He threw in 3 interceptions. Maybe that's something to do with it. I don't know. Buffalo, yes, has a very good team. I'm not doubting that for 1 minute. But I think Tennessee is in a must-win situation. They have to play competitive in this game to show that they're still a force in the NFL and in the AFC South. They were the number 1 seed last year, even though they lost in the first round, which was a surprise. But like I said, their backs are against the wall. And Mike Vrabel's been there. He's been there with the Patriots. He's done a very good job with Tennessee. Last 9 games, Buffalo and Tennessee has a little bit of a rivalry. Tennessee actually leads in the last 9 games, 6-3 straight up and 7-2 against the spread. But I think it's going to be a closer game than people think. Buffalo at home, yes, they've had a nice rest, no doubt about it. They played very well on that Thursday night game. I even liked them, and I liked them against the Rams. Their defense is very good. They play smart, but Tannehill's got to play a better game. He's capable of it. I think Tennessee's going to play competitive. I like Tennessee plus the points. I don't know if they win the game. I think it's going to be closer than the spread.
I think Buffalo annihilates them. They're better coached. They have more talent offensively. They're better defensively by miles. I think this is 15, 16 points by the time it's said and done. And I think Tennessee still wins their division at the end of the year after starting at 0-2. This Indianapolis looked horrible the first week. So when it's all said and done, I don't think this game means as much for Tennessee because they're not going anywhere anyway. The AFC is so stacked. They'll probably make the playoffs even at 0-2 and win their division. But Buffalo, they want the big prize. They want what they went in and saw in LA at SoFi Stadium, the celebration for the Rams homecoming. That's what they want to have in Buffalo. And they're going to come out with fire under them, and they're going to win by at least 2 touchdowns. And they're just going to annihilate Tennessee, especially if Derrick Henry doesn't eat up clock and hold the ball. But another team, they got to have the ball 35, 40 minutes easily to have a shot in the game. Time of possession is going to be the biggest stat that you see in that game. If you see Tennessee's under, 35 minutes, they don't have a chance. Josh Allen will pick them apart.
All right. Well, that's why they play the games. We'll see what happens on Monday night.
We definitely will. So, Mr. Cadillac, where can people find you?
Okay, you can find me on my website at jeffcadillac.com. I'm also on sportskita.com. I have a pick. My best bet of the week is on Twitter at jeffcadillac1. And you can even email me if you like at Gmail. So I answer emails as well.
Listen, make sure you follow it, Sideline Sports. 7 nights a week of shows. The best NFL pregame shows going. The NFL Carousel, which breaks down all the games and all the teams. The J&J Sports Express, where you get the betting angles against the spread. You want to make money, don't you?
Every week on Wednesday night, right here on Sideline Sports.
Got to follow along. The main show, Sideline Sports, every Tuesday at 8:30. The Sports Arena, Monday and Wednesdays at 10. The Geary and Stein Show. And don't forget Confidential live at Iowa this Saturday, 7:15, and then usually Tuesdays at 11. But that's about all I got time to say. Anything else, Mr. Cadillac, before we head out?
That's it. It's always a pleasure, JB, and I'll see you right back here next week. Next Wednesday night at 7 on Sideline Sports on the J&J Sports Express.